See another example for repeated code across conditional branches, and here our branches end with an else. If you look at the branches, you can see that we have some exact line of code or exactly unique line of code that are repeated across the branches. And we have also some lines of code that are not exactly the same, but are very, very similar. Here we are going to talk about how we can remove all these repeated code from the branches. But before that, let's take a look at these codes functionality. Starting from the top, we have an if statement. It checks whether the amount of sale is more than 100. Based on that, it calculates the salary. It seems that the salary is calculated based on $1 per sale and additional 10% of the sale, which probably is the bonus. And then the program prints two things. One is the amount of bonus, which, as I mentioned, is 10% of the sale, and also it prints the amount of salary. Looking at the truth table, you can see that when the sale is greater than 100 is true, the code prints two things. However, I put the amount of the bonus and salary within angle brackets because I did not know the number, and the number changes based on the amount of sale, right? So I couldn't put a fixed number in here, but these angle brackets indicate that these should be filled in with actual number. And this number depends based on the sale. So for example, if our sale is 110, the amount of the amount of bonus would be $11 and the amount of salary would be $121. If the amount of sale is not more than 100, then the whole body of the if statement will be skipped and we will move to the else if part. The else if checks whether the sale is greater than 50. If this condition is true, then the program again calculates the salary. It's a little bit different than the way it was calculating the salary in the above branch. And then it prints the amount of bonus, and then it prints the amount of salary. The amount of sales is less than or equal to 50, the first and second condition will evaluate to false. So the program skips the body of if and else if and it moves to the else part. So in the body of the else part, the salary will be calculated. And again, the program will print the amount of bonus and the amount of salary. So we can see that across all these branches, or when we look at the output of all these branches, we see two things is printed. One is the amount of bonus, and two is the amount of salary. Pay more attention to the lines of code across conditional branches. And specifically, I want you to pay attention to the line of code that I've highlighted in pink. You can see that that's an exact line of code that has been repeated across if and else branches. And it's very bad. And we want to eliminate that. We want to remove the repeated code from within the branches. Good news is that we know how to treat this type of repeated code. We should factor this to outside of the branch. We can move the repeated code or factor out the repeated code to above the branches, or we can place it after the branches. In this specific example, I have to actually keep it after the branches because of two reasons. First of all, in the example that we saw in the original code, the bonus was printed at first and then the salary was printed. This is one reason. Also, if I put this line of code before the branches, the amount of salary is calculated inside the branches. And this line of code prints the salary. So we cannot print the salary before calculating the salary. So for fixing the or for making sure that we don't change the functionality or for making sure that we maintain the functionality, we have to put this line of code after the branches. You should be very, very careful of where you put the line of code that you factored outside. Okay, I remove the extra white space or the blank line between these conditional branches, and now you see that like the code already looks much better. However, we're not done with the improvement. We can further improve this code because the other lines of code that are shared across the branches are very, very similar, except for the numbers that I've highlighted in pink. We call these lines of codes repeated logic. The reason is that, for example, the logic across if, else if, and else condition for calculating the salary is the same. We add the amount of sales to some percentage of the sale. However, this amount of percentage is different across the branches. Similarly, for calculating the amount of bonus and printing the amount of bonus, we see that we multiply some percentages on the amount of sales. So the logic is the same, however, the amount of percentage is different across the branches. This is a clue for us when we have a repeated logic. This is a clue for us that we may be able to define a variable and assign these values to the variable inside the branches and replace these hard-coded values with the variable that we defined. This way, we may be able to convert the repeated logic into repeated code. And then when we have a repeated code, we know how to factor the repeated code to outside of the branches. Let me show you how. I defined a double variable bonus percentage. It's initially 0, but inside the branches, I will assign the values to it. So as you can see, for example, in the if branch, I assigned the value 0 0.1 to the bonus percentage. In the second branch, the amount or the value of 0 0.08 is assigned to the bonus percentage and so on. Now we can replace this variable with wherever we have these hard-coded numbers. Like this, I just replaced the numbers with this variable that we defined. Great. Let's see what happened. Now I have highlighted a line of code in blue. I want you to just focus on that line of code. You can see that all the blue lines are exactly the same across the branches. That's great news. That's the repeated code, and we know how to factor out the repeated code to outside of the branches. So great, let's do it. Great, I factored out the repeated code to outside of the branches, but I needed to decide where this line of code should go. I could put that either before the branches. However, it does not make sense in this case because we assign the variable bonus percentage within the branches, and if we need to have that variable so we can calculate the salary. So if I put that before the branches, the functionality would change and it wouldn't the code would not work correctly. And also I should put this line of code before the line that prints the salary because we have to have the salary so then we can print it. Okay, great. Great. Now we are left with only one more line of code that you can see in blue. It's exactly the same across the branches. It's a repeated code, and I know that I have to factor that to outside of the branches, so I'll go ahead and do it. I factored that to outside of the branches and I put it in the correct position. Why this is the correct position? Because if you remember in the original code, it was like calculating the amount of salary, printing the bonus, and then printing the salary. So I have to print the bonus before printing the salary. So this is the natural place that I have to put this line of code. I also removed all the blank lines across the conditional branches. And now you can see that how nice this code looks like compared to the original version. There's no repeated code across the branches. Within the branches, we only assign the value of bonus percentage. However, we do all the calculations, such as calculating the salary, calculating the bonus, and we do all the printing outside of the branches. However, we can slightly tweak the way that the salary is calculated right now. And instead of having sale plus sale multiplied by bonus percentage, we can have sale multiplied by 1 plus bonus percentage. That's a small tweak that makes the code even better. Now let's make sure that we haven't accidentally changed the code functionality. Starting from the first line of code, if sale greater than 100 is true, then the program puts the amount of bonus percentage to be equal to 0.1, and then um, the program skips the else if and else part, and it moves to the next line that is calculating the salary. It calculates the salary, and then it prints the amount of bonus, which is sale multiplied by bonus percentage, and then it prints the amount of salary. Great. However, if the amount of salary is not more than 100, the if statement, the body of if statement will not execute, and the else if statement will be checked whether the sale is greater than 50. If this is true, again, we skip the else part, and then we calculate the salary, and then the program prints the amount of bonus and then the amount of salary. And finally, if the sale is not more than 100 and if the sale is not also more than 50, then the body of the if and else if will be skipped and the program moves to the else part and the bonus percentage will be set. Again, we calculate the salary, the program prints the amount of bonus, and then it prints the amount of salary. Okay, great. It seems that we have not changed the code functionality. However, we could make this code a lot simpler and a lot nicer.